Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our co-main event for UFC 321. In this one, we have Virna Jandiroba taking on Mackenzie Dern for the vacant strawweight title. Don't mind my cat; she's actually excited for this fight, unlike most people. So Zhang Weili has officially vacated the belt. This was announced about a month ago or so, to take on Valentina Shevchenko at UFC 322 next month. So now that the strawweight title is vacant, we now have the number one contender and someone who should have been fighting for the belt, Virna Jandiroba, taking on a woman who defeated her many years ago in Mackenzie Dern. Now, I know a lot of people have kind of complained, like, why is Mackenzie Dern getting the title shot? Well, three things. One, she's the only one in the top five of strawweight who's on more than one fight win streak, as both Lamos and Xiaonai are coming off losses, and Suarez at that time had just lost her had just lost her title fight to Weili, so it really wouldn't make any sense. Two, Mackenzie Dern is one of the few people to beat Virna Jandiroba, and three, the UFC is still riding the Mackenzie Dern train, and they're going to try and ride it until the tracks fall off or until it strikes gold, because Mackenzie Dern is very attractive. I don't know what to tell you. But, I also think she is a good fighter, especially when she has firing on all cylinders. Also, if you like the shirt, I figured I'd rep it a little bit because it is technically the spooky season, so at least I try to wear something spooky. Now, Jandiroba is 22-3 as a professional, 5-0 in her last 5 fights, currently riding a 5-fight win streak. Meanwhile, Dern is 15-5 as a professional, 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Looking at this run Jandiroba's been on, her last loss was back at UFC 285 to Amanda Ribas back in March of 2023. Since then, she won a decision to Angela Hill, a decision to Marina Rodriguez, a decision to Lupita Godinez, an armbar submission to Amanda Lamos, and most recently at UFC 314, beat Yao Xiaonai to become the number one contender. Meanwhile, for Dern, she defeated back in May of 2023 Angela Hill versus in unanimous decision, which I'll talk about that fight more, but I'll tell you this right now. I think that was the best Mackenzie Dern we had ever seen in the UFC. Then she loses 2 straight fights, getting knocked out by Jessica Andrade at UFC 295. Then loses a decision to Amanda Lamos at UFC 298. And now is on this 2-fight win streak, beating Lupita Godinez last August, and then avenging her loss to Amanda Ribas this January in the first card of this year. So, right off the bat, this is going to be more so a grappling match than a striker's match. As we know, Mackenzie Dern is one of the best, on paper at least, best jiu-jitsu practitioners in all the women's divisions. I mean, her father is a jiu-jitsu legend. She's practically born on the jiu-jitsu mats. And, say what you want, she's inconsistent. Her striking is not there. And she, has some bad defensive lapses, especially in the striking. But her ground game is absolutely elite. And while, you never want to see a fighter fight off their back, I'd say she's very good at it and is very good at reversing positions even when she's on bottom. Meanwhile, Jandiroba is as well a highly decorated jiu-jitsu practitioner, or a jiu-jitsu champion, and as well, and one of the few fighters in this division who can match Mackenzie Dern on the ground. Though, granted, that's also vice versa for Dern to be able to compete with Jandiroba on the mat as well. So it's kind of a deadlock there. Now, before I really break down this fight, let me talk about their first fight. These two fought back at UFC 256 back in 2020. It was actually, that card was the first fight between Moreno and Figueiredo. So, how far we've come since that fight. And in that fight, Dern won a clear 29-28 decision, mostly back off the back of her aggressive striking and willingness to pressure forward. And in fact, she was the one initiating the takedowns and trying to take this fight to the mat. It was Jandiroba who didn't really want to engage the grappling as much as she does now. Now, Jandiroba had some moments on the feet where she specifically landed a kick in the second round where the knee connected to Dern's face. and literally broke Mackenzie Dern's nose. But honestly, that also kind of shows what we kind of know about Dern. She is tough as hell, and does not matter how much pain she's in. She's going to keep fighting no matter what. She is a fighter for sure. Now, you look at how they are since that fight. Let's start with Jandiroba. Since that fight, Jandiroba has improved her wrestling greatly. She incorporates it much better than she did before, or that fight. And even after the Hibas loss, I think she's done even better in implementing that wrestling since, 5 years ago. And it shows in her fights. Not only just her grappling, though, but her strength as well. Jandiroba, especially with Weili out of the division, might be the strongest strawweight on the roster, besides maybe Suarez. As Jandiroba's ability to maintain control, even in unorthodox positions, is kind of unmatched. Like, for example, her fight with Yan Xiaonai, when she was going for like the Kimura or an armbar when she was on Yan Xiaonai's back and Jandiroba was going for it, there were times where she was a little too high up on her back and kind of elevated off or slid off. But she had such strong grips on Yao Xiaonai's arm. She was able to kind of just turn Xiaonai on her back, and then Jandiroba remained in a dominant position. Now, another thing about Jandiroba is like her striking. It's very different than Dern for a few things. One, I find it a bit more technical overall, and she does incorporate, I think, a better few weapons for a grappler, like those teep kicks and overall corralling punches. But Jandiroba is very aware that her striking is more so a support for her main game. It's not something she's going to fall back on at all. She is strictly a grappler at heart. The striking is purely a means to an end to close the distance and then get her hands on her opponent. And then once then, like I said, Jandiroba is great with her wrestling. She's really incorporated good double legs and single legs. But even then, her ability to climb the back, even from the clinch when her opponents are pressed against the fence, is very good as well. And you notice Jandiroba's grappling is very top pressure oriented or back control oriented. You never see Jandiroba try and fight off her back, like, ever. And rightfully so, you don't really win off your back. Now, you may have a great guard like her, Dern, or like Oliveira, for an example. But at the end of the day, if you're on your back for majority of a 15-minute fight, you're not going to win that way. And so Jandiroba's positional grappling, like position over submission is the name of her grappling for most part, is absolutely phenomenal, especially from her back control and just doing little things that are so fucking infuriating for her opponents, like grabbing the mouth to disrupt the breathing, and like kind of grabbing the chin and like forcing her opponent's head up, not only like exposing the neck while she has back control, but just like making it hell. That's the best way to describe her grappling. It is utter hell for her opponents. Either those little things, like I just mentioned, like covering the mouth to disrupt breathing, and or just those short little punches she does. Everything she does when it involves in her grappling is pure torture and control. Her opponents can't get her off her for the most part. There are some fighters, and it's crazy too, because she has fought some fighters you think would at least have some ability to resist the takedowns. Like Lupita Godinez has phenomenal wrestling, or Amanda Lemos, for the most part, has good submissions. Can do nothing against Jandiroba when she got her hands together. Now, you look at Mackenzie Dern, and I would say Mackenzie Dern overall is the more powerful striker of the two, because I've actually seen Dern hurt her opponents much more. She hurt Angela Hill. She hurt who was it that? Lupita Godinez when she broke her nose when Dern was going for the armbar and started throwing up hammer fist. Overall, I say Dern is the shot for shot much harder hitting striker. Now, I don't think her striking is as refined as Jandiroba, as she still does some of those winging punches that can infuriate me. Or also, some of her defensive striking is very bad. Like, there'll be times where she throws a combination and then put her hands down, or like back up in a straight line instead of like moving side to side. You never want to do that, because that will lead yourself open to getting hit eventually, because there's only so so much space you can go backwards to. But that being said, as I mentioned, Dern's grappling is phenomenal. I'm trying to remember if the stat was she has the most wins via submission in all the women's divisions, or at the very least the most wins via submissions in the weight class. That part, that knowledge is like escaping me at the current moment. But Dern has phenomenal grappling. Her guard is super dangerous. Again, I don't like it when fighters rely off their guard too much, but even then, Dern has a great ability to sweep and then wind up on top. You saw like in the rematch with Hebos, where in their first fight, Hebos was able to maintain top control for basically all of their fight. In this one, Dern was able to use like an omoplata in the second round to sweep, and then Dern was able to get an armbar set up, flip Hebos to her back, and then finish the fight via armbar. Dern's ground and pound is ferocious. As I mentioned, she has really strong ground and pound. And as I just said, like broke Lupita Godinez's nose, hurt Angela Hill, hurt Reba. I wouldn't say hurt Rebos, but clearly had enough impact with the hammer fist while she was hooking in for the armbar that Hebos was far too distracted to defend the armbar properly. And Dern uses leverage, pendulum sweeps, that kind of stuff very well from bottom in order to get to top position. Now, the one thing that has plagued Mackenzie's Dern throughout her entire career is her inconsistency. She got me literally spin words. It's like crazy how inconsistent she can be. As I said, when she fought Angela Hill, I thought that was the best Mackenzie Dern we had ever seen in the UFC, and I still hold that true. She had great moments in the striking, hit great sweeps, show how much stronger she had gotten, and controlled Hill for the entirety of that fight, either smashing her with the ground and pound or going for multiple submission attempts. Now, of course, that was apparently fueled by rage due to legal battles and whatnot that I'm not going to dive into. But then you see immediately afterwards her fight with Andrade, and it looks like a completely different fighter. Her hands are down. She's not even trying to really take down Andrade, besides like one time where she tripped her, getting just battered left and right. Her hands are just by her like waist for the most part, just like right here, throwing punches with her chin right up in the air to get countered. You look at us like, what the fuck happened? Where's the Dern that fought Angela Hill that looked like she's finally got it all worked out, finally got it all clicking together? I don't know. But since then, now is riding a 2-fight win streak. And while, that Lupita Godinez fight was close, I thought Dern did edge it out. And it was at least consistent, right? Where she had better striking overall, both offensively and defensively. She was able to use her ground game very well to stifle the wrestling of Godinez. And then, you look at the Hebos fight where she avenged the first woman to beat her in MMA by, again, improving her striking and using her jiu-jitsu much better, and not just being content to play off her back, but also going for those sweeps. Now, Dern is always going to hunt submissions off her back, and looking at their first fight, while very rarely did that fight hit the ground, there were some moments that I can take off of at least to maybe have an idea of how this is going to play out. Now, obviously, these two are much different fighters. They've improved, and for the most part, in the last 5 years. As I said, Jandiroba's progression is definitely much more stable and like clearly an upward trajectory, while Dern is, up and down, up and down, up and down with her progression. But when it came to the ground, Jandiroba had top position for the most part of that fight, but unlike all of her other opponents, at least I can think of, besides like Chao Nai, when she was able to ride Jandiroba off her and then end up in top position, for a brief moment. Dern was able to reverse position when Jandiroba got on top, and then they were kind of in like a 50-50, and Dern was even able to get on top of Jandiroba during some of the grappling exchanges. Now, what I think is going to happen in this fight is Jandiroba is not going to be fearful of the grappling as she was in the first fight, and actually go for her own takedowns. And that's where it gets intriguing. Honestly, when it comes to the striking, I think it will be kind of like their first fight. I think Dern is going to be the overall more aggressive of the two and still hit with a little bit more power. And I'll say this now, their first fight was honestly pretty entertaining. As I said, like Dern broke her nose due to a knee to the face. She was hitting Jandiroba with some nice 1-2s. And even her leg kicks I thought were pretty good in that fight. And, Jandiroba, when she was put into a firefight, she did fight back and she did fire her own hard hitting shots in that matchup. I thought it's just Dern's overall aggression won in the end. And that's the big reason why, Dern won the first fight. So once again, I do think Dern will be the more aggressive fighter in this fight. And overall a more powerful striker, while I think Jandiroba is going to be a bit more technical. But once this hits the ground, it's honestly anything can really happen in this one. I can see Jandiroba maintaining top pressure for majority of the fight, but I can also see Dern reversing her at portions and even hunting for her submissions. Now, Jandiroba does have her own submissions. She's got pretty nasty arm bars. Most of her submissions are kind of arm oriented, whether going for a Kimura or going for the arm bar. But she's also got some rear naked chokes to her name too. So does Dern. I don't know if either one can submit the other. They are both pretty sound defensively when it comes to that. And I don't think they're going to make too many mistakes on the ground to where they get caught. Or sorry, like for example, like they leave their arm out too long and then they get caught in the arm bar, or they get caught in the rear naked choke, because they know all the proper defenses. They know how to, let's turn around, or sorry, like turn out of a body lock and stuff like that. Overall, their submission defenses are very good, and I don't really see either one losing via submission in this fight. Now, looking at the odds, I was honestly kind of shocked when I saw them. Plus 140 for Jandiroba, minus 166 for Dern. I'm a little surprised by these, if I'm being honest, because I figured Dern would be the underdog in this fight. Jandiroba has had a lot more consistency on a 5-fight win streak and has been 2 of the top 5 already. It's honestly just kind of surprising. Besides Dern beating her in the first fight, but like I said, 5 years ago to now, they are much different fighters, and I do see this as being a different fight, while some overall similarities are still going to happen. Now, looking at their physical specs, it's not too much in terms of like overall differences. Dern's going to be slightly bigger by an inch at 5'4", while Jandiroba is 5'3". But then Jandiroba is going to beat Dern by reach by an inch with a 64-inch reach advantage to Dern's 63. Again, literally not too much difference besides 1 inch in height and 1 inch in reach as the difference. Now, for my official prediction, I'm going to lean towards Mackenzie Dern. I know it's kind of weird because, like I said, Jandiroba has improved vastly. What kind of Mackenzie Dern are we going to get? It's like similar to Kevin Holland. We're going to get the Dern that looked awesome against Hill or Hibas, or are we going to get the Dern that, makes such bad decisions in the Andrade fight? I bashed my head against the wall thinking, why did I pick her? Sorry about that. But I feel like just her overall aggressiveness is going to win on the judges' scorecards. And on the ground, Jandiroba is not going to be able to dominate her like she's done everybody else. Whereas mostly strikers who are looking to defend the takedowns and or think they could out-scramble Jandiroba. In this one, Dern knows what she's doing. She is going to be able to out-scramble Jandiroba in certain positions. And I think she's going to be able to make smart decisions, whether it's on her back in full guard or on top, whether it was the ground and pound and or hunt for her own submissions. Now, there's also something different when it comes to Dern fighting off her back in comparison to the other Jandiroba opponents. You see Dern never fully accepts guard. Now, she does play with her guard at times, but you do see her like hunting for butterfly hooks or setting up triangles, setting up arm bars. It doesn't matter. She's not fully accepting the position. She is hunting her own hooks in to sweep, hitting ground and pound from the bottom with grabbing the head and then elbowing with the other arm. Little stuff like that to where she's constantly moving off her back and it's not just like stationary. But again, overall, I think it's the aggressiveness of Dern that's going to win out in the day. Now, granted, I know not many people are picking Jandiroba. In fact, I'm pretty sure Jandiroba is like a very popular underdog. as I think just about everybody is picking her. But I think I'm going to lean towards the aggression and the ability that Mackenzie Dern is like going to put it all together in the most important fight of her career. So my official prediction, I'm going to go with Mackenzie Dern, and I'm going to pick her via decision. I think it's a close fight. I see him drawing for position, and I mostly see them trading back and forth like control time, like who's in the better position, who's got back, who's got mount, blah, blah, blah. That's where I think most of this fight hits. Now, again, on the feet, I think Dern will be able to hurt Jandiroba more. Yeah, and that's mostly my other big reason why I'm picking her. I think Jandiroba's power is kind of the equalizer when it comes on the feet. And, damage does trump all at the end of the day. Now, I can also, granted, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I can see Jandiroba, getting the more control time as she is a top position oriented grappler, much more than Dern is. And I can see her winning a control heavy decision. But once again, my big reason for picking Dern, I just think aggression at the end of the day is going to win this fight. So again, officially, I'm picking Mackenzie Dern, and I'm picking her via unanimous decision. But that being said, that's been my breakdown of this fight. If you like the video, comment and subscribe. Do you think Mackenzie Dern is going to be able to win and wear gold in 2025? Or do you think the #1 contender is going to be the reigning champion now in Jandiroba? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Next up, we'll have our main event, Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. And thank you all for listening. Take care.